exercises to help with your compulsive need for closure.
Well, I take issue with the word compulsive.
Can you guys hear this?
All I'm saying is we live in a world where closure isn't always an option.
Shun. Okay. For the sake of argument, let's say I have a problem. What would be your plan for addressing it?
I'm going to recondition your brain so that the need for completion isn't so overwhelming.
By playing tic-tac-toe.
Yep, your turn.
Oh, Amy. And you wonder why people think neuroscience is nothing but a goofy game for diaper babies. Tic-tac-toe can only end in win, lose, or draw, none of which will deny me closure. Especially since I'm about to win. Well, we didn't finish.
Exactly. How does that make you feel?
Same way any normal person would. I'm going to peel off my own face and tear it in two, and then again and again, until like a handful of shell-face confetti.
And that's exactly the feeling you want to address with this course of treatment.
Or you could pitch in, grab a nostril, and help me get his face off.
Come on, you can do this.
Yeah, but you don't know what it's like to feel completely frustrated. And to have a desire build up within you and then be denied any opportunity for release.
They're dating.
Yeah, sounds like a drag. It's quite an impressive layout, isn't it?
Yes.
Let's box it up.
My favorite.
Chris Benson.
That's enough. Okay, Sheldon, make a wish and blow out the candles. Oops, missed one. Now your wish can't come true.
Lucky for you, because I wished you were dead. I was skeptical at first, but this has truly been a transformative evening.
I'm a little surprised to hear you feeling so positive.
Well, you're an excellent neuroscientist, you're a wonderful girlfriend, and... Doesn't matter, does it?
I'm proud of you, Sheldon.
And a complete sucker. Oh, yeah. There he is. Keep going, just like this. Almost there. Almost there.
Sheldon, you big weirdo, I want you to know that I love that you're in my life.
I love you too.
Alright, that's just funny. Isn't that funny? Yeah. Alright, so let's get into some practical tips. Alright, so I'm just going to say this. All of these tips aren't going to work for all of you, right? They just couldn't. I don't know any of you, really. Well, I know some of you. But I don't know you specifically enough to say that these are going to work. Now, I like to kind of get general, and then you can kind of get creative and apply them, right? The first thing I would say is, get a good professional in your life. Yeah? And many of you have them. A lot of you have like great teams. I mean, I'm looking at Andrea. Andrea's in here and she's amazing. Somebody who knows what this is clinically. All right? So not just looking at this as SR, stimulus response. Bigger than that. Make sure you go bigger than that. Okay? Because we as human beings are not stimulus response. We're just not. We're way more complex than that. All right. The best professional is someone that, if your child or the person you're here for has autism, they really need to know autism. Because I will say I treat OCD straight without autism differently than I do when I'm working with someone with autism. I really tailor that very differently. So those two things are really different. All right. Now, sometimes I feel like we have people that have very great intentions, wonderful intentions, but the intentions actually are not enough. You need the expertise, okay? All right, so let's talk about setting expectations, and I don't mean to be a downer. But if you really have OCD or someone in your life has OCD, they will have it for the rest of their life. Please do not go into it thinking you're going to get into a treatment and then it's going to be gone. Because that is setting you up for failure. Okay? I say that about depression and I say that about anxiety. Winston Churchill had a really lovely metaphor for his depression. And he called it his black dog. And it's been really lovely because I've used this with a lot of my adults, which is that dog is going to be with you as a companion. And if you don't train that dog or you don't figure out how to work that dog going to wreak havoc in your life. I have a very energetic Springer Spaniel. For those of you that know me, you know Walter. I should have had a video of Walter. And he's the most loving thing, but oh my goodness, gracious me. I mean, he is full of energy, way more than me. So it's kind of crazy in my house, I think. But if I don't train him, right, he's going to be like that, right? But if I can, he's a lovely companion. He's the best at night, he's the best snuggler, and the funniest thing, the funniest dog. I mean, brings lots of joy in my life, okay? So, depression, OCD, anxiety-based disorders, our people struggle with them for the rest of their life. They have to figure out, how do I make this work in the context of my life in a way that's sustainable? So when I talk about sustainable living as an adult, I'm not just talking about making money or doing cooking or cleaning the house. I'm thinking about sustainability here. How do I live in my head? That's really important, okay? So what happens when I have someone come in and think, how long is this going to take? 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 13 weeks? When are we done with this? Okay, I already know, because if we go there, guess what's going to happen? I know the course of OCD, I know what it does. If they think that that's going to happen, what do you think is the result after we've done treatment? What do you guys think? Depression. Yeah. I'm depressed, or I don't feel really good about myself. I now don't trust treatment. I tried treatment. That stunk. That was hard, and it didn't work, right? So now I've learned helplessness. Yeah? So it's really important for you to go into this going, you know what, I want to set my expectations accordingly. Not too low, right? But not too high either, okay? So this is not something that gets cured, yeah? So there's no such thing here. Do not try extinction. How many of you know what extinction is? That means you're in a behavioral program. No, I'm just kidding. That's a really behavioral term, right? Planned ignoring, right? I want to ignore this. Now, let me ask you this question. Because intrusive thinking does not do well with ignoring. Yeah? So, if let's say you want to go to sleep, right? You're having trouble sleeping. Does it help for you to do this? I gotta go to sleep. I really gotta go to sleep. Go to sleep. I gotta go to sleep. I'm gonna go to sleep. I gotta go to sleep. Does that help? No. How if you're talking about a trigger? Maybe it could be, a trigger could be, don't think about the doorknob. Don't think about the doorknob. Don't think about the doorknob. Nope, don't think about the doorknob. Okay, I'm not gonna think about the doorknob. We're gonna ignore it. What do you think happens in someone's head with that intrusive thought? It gets louder. The volume gets turned way up, and then I have more distress. Okay? All right. So, what happens with this too, and what I've seen, is that when we ignore these things over time, my clients get crazy when they're usually not, and they get aggressive, and they get violent when they're usually not. Okay? Why is that a problem? Is that now my client, who is usually not aggressive or violent, is now hospitalized. And that just changed the course for them for their entire life in regards to placement. It's really serious. Okay, I can't say that enough. So what do we do in my office is we shift attention. The brain's gonna work, right? The brain's gonna roll. Actually, the brain can think about 1,000 to 2,000 thoughts a minute. That much, that we're meant to do that. So, if the brain's gonna work, shift the attention away from the thought. Okay? Shift it to something else. So, sometimes we shift it to a goal, right? So, if the goal is, hey, you know what? I don't want to be consumed by this tape. Oh my gosh, tape. Tape. Okay? Let's just say that. Let's say it's tape, right? Now, what I might set up later on, and I wouldn't do this in pure OCD, is I might set up tape as a reward. But after we've done a lot of practice of inhibition and a lot of practice of coping, right? So then I get my client focused on that. All right, let's earn points. Instead of saying tape, say points. And it shifts the brain into something else, okay? But use it. The brain has to think, give it something to think about. Do not go silent. Like no radio silence, that's not good. All right, the other thing too is I say this a lot to my clients, change the way your OCD looks. Don't go for elimination, just change the way it looks. If it always happens in this sequence, change one thing about that sequence. Don't let it perpetuate in that same way every time. Change a little thing about it. And you will feel much better about it because it's more humane, right? If I came at someone and said, you're not allowed to do that sequence ever again. That doesn't work. That just doesn't work. So change a little part about it. Maybe delay how long it takes for them to get it. That's changing the way it looks, right? Maybe change the sequence of something. Just change the way it looks in some way, shape, or form. A lot of my families come in and they're very overwhelmed. So I like this. Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. That's all you can do, okay? Baby steps in a very big process. All right. All right. Pick your battles, right? Don't fight them all, but pick one. Pick one. So I've heard some people tell me that it's been recommended to them by people and professionals that they shouldn't treat their OCD. They should let it fly. Okay? So my response is always, if you didn't treat it, what would you imagine it would then look like? And what do you think those families tell me? Worse or better?
Worse.
Every time. You have to be warriors. This is like a warrior thing. All right? Yeah.
So I had a conversation earlier with someone who said something similar to this. It's like
Ignore it.
it's like the experts are saying,
Yeah.
ignore it. So the experts don't get this. Is this someplace in a textbook or an article peer-reviewed that we can refer them to give us more of an arsenal of how we can be a warrior for our children?
I think you should say, then why do they write OCD books? Why are there, like, go on Amazon, really, and put in self-help for OCD. Like, it's pretty, it's a disorder. I mean, I think that's what you say, like, so, and you can say to a professional, and professionals differ and we differ in our opinions all the time. I mean, my opinion differs. This is based on my clinical experience, which is, I know, like, for me as a professional, I actually would never recommend that OCD go unattended. I wouldn't. That would be me. Maybe another professional might do that, right? But I think for you, in regards to advocacy, because you're talking about how do I advocate for this, right? It's like, listen, what I imagine as the consequence, or what I imagine if we don't address it is this. And I really can't imagine that. I'm not willing to accept that. You guys know your kids. Whether they're 6, 4, or 30, you know them, right? They get harder when they're older. But they're supposed to be a little harder, okay? Okay, if we think about brain science, neurons that fire together wire together, right? So if we have these behaviors repeating over and over and over again, it takes about 2,000 to 4,000 repetitions for a habit to get solidified. If you think about OCD, how many times a day do you think someone has an obsessive thought? I mean, take a guess.
700.
They've already met it, right? Some people can meet the 2,000 repetition requirement in one day. So imagine that day after day, month after month, year after year. How hard then is that when the brain says, that's the easy path to go? The brain's always going to go with what's easier, right? So the way you combat that is you build new habits. So how do you make a behavior change? You have to have a behavior that competes with that is equal to or stronger than that pathway. Do you see how hard behavior changes? Yes? People who had open heart surgery were told that they had to change their diet, right? How many people in that group, in this research study, changed their diet? Just guess in percentage.
10.
2.
5. Life is on the line. Yes? Life is on the line, but look how hard behavior is to change, right? Behavior change is not easy, and we shouldn't approach it like it's easy, okay? It's really actually quite complicated, but doable. Okay, here's the other thing too, is I want you guys to be warriors about teaching emotional regulation. Emotional regulation is one of those things where I know my emotions, and I'm comfortable with them, and I know what to do with them. Right? That's really hard. I work with some adults that are not on the spectrum that have this, that struggle with this. Okay, emotional regulation is hard, but that is really, really important in the management of any kind of anxiety. And the other thing is the difference between danger and discomfort. Right? Because sometimes when I'm working on a new skill, it doesn't feel very comfortable for my clients, but it's not dangerous. Right? But the brain responds to it like there's a threat. So we have to work with that very carefully. Okay. So I talked about breathing. How many of you know how to breathe? You obviously are breathing now, but do you really know how to breathe? I hope some of you do, because I have assigned it to you as homework. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Practice is the issue.
Practice is so hard, right? It's so hard to get that big diaphragmatic breathing, but it's one of the fastest ways to shift you from fight, flight, freeze to being human, like front part of the brain. It's the fastest way to do it. So I always say, even in little ones, you can do fun games with breathing, even if it's like blowing bubbles and stuff. You can do some fun stuff like that to really get those long exhales and those deep inhales. It's so worthwhile because it is the thing that slows everything down so that we can get logical again. So breathe, breathe, breathe. If there's anything that you take away from today, it's breathe. Deep. Deep and long. Okay? Is there anyone here in the Army or military or in the armed forces? No? They have something called a 4 in, 4 out that they teach soldiers so that they can calm themselves in battle. It's a 4 in, 4 out breath, right? Why do you think they do that?
To regulate,
I mean, their life is literally on the line at that moment, but they have to be here. They have to be thinking about what they're doing, right? They can't just run. They actually have to be quite calculated. So SEALs, like your special ops, they know how to do this, and they do these really, so they call it a 4 in, 4 out. But we're all human. Like, even for the person you're here for today, they're human beings, right? Breathing is a good thing, deep breathing, deep breathing. Any way you can get it, okay? Even if it's modeling. So, even if you're doing it in the midst of a challenge, if you're breathing the way you'd like them to breathe, that can be really calming. Okay? Even if they're not along for the ride. Okay, you can anchor them, right? You can co-regulate them. Yeah. All right. All right. If your person can do this, combat the irrational thought. If they can do it, right? If not, well, I'll give you something else. But if they can identify that the thought's irrational, then take it apart. Break it apart. Okay. How many of your kids, or the person you're here for, are visual? That's their strength, right? So you know that we've got like 3 million neurons that come into our brain from the world, like that we're perceiving. 2.4 of those are visual. 2.4 out of the 3 mil are visual. So, when you get overwhelmed, one of the first things I say to my clients, close your eyes. Like, just do that right now. Just shut your eyes. Close your eyes. Okay, now open them. That is an immediate way to be like, whoa, good, reset. Stop the flood of information from coming in, okay? Now, if they're visual and that's a strength, play to strength, right? Always play to strength, okay? Whether you have autism or not, that just makes sense. So I do a lot of behavior mapping. So I map out like what's happening in a sequence, and then I do something called choose your own adventure, right? If you took this way, whatever that is, what do you think is going to happen at the ending? If you took this way, what do you think is going to happen this way? You know this way already. You know this way already. What are you going to do? So the other thing that you want to do is empower your people. Empower them to make their own choices in whatever way that they can. So I love this. I saw this and I loved it. I have OCD, but OCD doesn't have me.
No.
I'm in control of it. Yeah? Okay. All right. All right. So we talked about this, which is differentiating OCD from ASD. And I see sleepy eyes because, it's almost 9 o'clock. Are you guys okay? You guys okay? Okay. All right. I'm going to skedaddle. I'll hurry. Okay. Here's the other thing that I selfishly love to work on, because I think it's really important, is state identification. Not that we live in California, not that kind of state identification. How do you feel at this moment? How many of your people that you're here for can do that? Tell you, I know how I feel right now. I can make some kind of acknowledgement or verbalization or picture or show you in some way how I'm feeling. Hard, right?
Yeah, I usually just this much.
Yeah, yeah. And that might be like, this is where my stress is. Yeah. That's great, So the really important thing is it's hard for us to work with our people if they also don't give us something back about where they are. So any way you can show that, it might be like Lee McQueen going slow, medium, fast. It could be red light, green light, yellow light. I mean, you can take what they like, but have some way of understanding where they are. It doesn't have to be with words, and it can be with pictures. It doesn't matter. It could be with toys. I mean, Inside Out was a huge gift to me. Andrea, yes. Thank you, Pixar, for Inside Out. Have you guys seen Inside Out?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, next time we're just going to have an FA meeting, I'm just going to show it. That's what we're going to do. We're just having it. And it's been so phenomenal. And you know what some people have done is they've taken anger, who really cracks me up, and they've made him small, bigger. So, they've brought anger that way. People have done their own control centers in my office with their own mixes of emotions and what ball, comes down. It's been so lovely as its own metaphor and its own visual. However you do it creatively and align it with special interests. But it's so worth it to get state identification and breathing. Okay. How many of you guys sleep as much as you should? Right? Right. Sleep is a huge issue. Huge issue. And what happens to us when we don't sleep? Over and over and over again. Right? We have no ability to repair. We have no resourcing left. Our bucket's already full when we wake up.
No.
It's really tough. It's tough for everybody. But you know, it's hard for interventions. Like sometimes when I'm like working on interventions and I'm like, why isn't this working? It's like, I don't have someone who's sleeping. Okay, that's first and foremost what I need to be focusing on is I need sleep, right? How about good eating? Yes, we have good eating? Or do we have what I used to call the yellow food diet? Yeah, chicken nuggets, bananas, chocolate face. All right. Stress management. Our older ones need more stress management because it's really important as the demands of life grow. Our little ones need stress management because they're getting exposed to new situations. So stress management is really important. How many of you feel like you're good at managing your stress? Yourself. Yeah?
I do a ton.
Yeah. You do a ton of stress or you do a lot of good management?
The issue is receiving. I give myself a lot of self-care.
Yeah.
The issue is being able to extend that for periods of time when I'm not in that moment of self-care.
Oh yeah, so how do you hold that?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you hold that?
No.
Therapists would call that a relational home. It's a therapist verbiage, but yeah, how do you do that when you're not in it? Yeah, how do you extend that? That's so true. This is really critical actually, because sometimes I say to a parent or a mother, usually, how are you doing right at this moment? How are you? And 9 times out of 10 they cry.
Yeah.
That's what happens in my office, they cry, you know, and it's because they're holding it together and they're really working hard and it just feels really overwhelming. So that happens. But stress management is really important for everybody. Yeah, okay. Okay. If you can go for psychoeducation and you can go for education, go for it if your person can understand it. Now, being able to talk shouldn't be your signal about whether they can understand something or not. You know whether your kiddo understands it. So, what do you guys think is the difference between anxiety and fear? Anxiety and fear, what do you think?
Anxiety is longer lasting.
Mm-hmm. It definitely is long-lasting, anxiety. Fear is the moment, the present moment. Anxiety is usually future-driven. Okay? A good example is, how many of you know, Screamin', California Screamin', over California Adventure, yeah? Okay, so you're like, you know when you're like sitting there and it's like, 5, 4, okay, that's anxiety. I'm kind of anxious about what's gonna happen. Fear is when I get shot 60 miles, you know, up, that's fear, yeah? There's a difference, and fear is that immediate response. Anxiety is future-driven, yes. Anxiety also brings with it meaning, though. It usually means something to someone. So, like, my guys tend to be anxious about their futures, right? Because it means something. They want to be successful. So, that means something to them, all right? So, there's a difference there. They both give us a signal of threat, right? We have to kind of know that we're not in danger, and that's what fear does. Fear gives us danger, and actually we should be fearful because there's a snarling dog that's running after us. That's fear, and you should be fearful, right? In that moment. You shouldn't be thinking in that moment. Okay. The fight, flight, freeze response, you guys know that, right? Okay, do you think in that moment? No, you shouldn't be thinking in that moment. So, when OCD is getting triggered, is it fear or anxiety? Anxiety. You're not in danger, right? You're not in danger. You are not going to die if you touch that doorknob. That's anxiety, okay? Fear needs to be, they're different because fear plays a role. And if you're fearful because you're walking across the street and someone's lost control of their car, you should probably run. Yeah? Don't like, I wonder. The trajectory of that person, not mine, some of my clients might do this. They're going this fast. They're losing control at this angle. No, just get out of the road. Just get out of it. Okay. So the breathing is what brings us front brain so that we can think about it if it is anxiety, not fear. All right, so I'm going to see where you are. How are you doing? It's 9 o'clock, yeah, when someone's in distress. So a lot of times, my parents can talk. blah, 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 la, 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 la. It's like Charlie Brown's teacher. Wah, 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 right? And my client's so distressed that all that talking is just adding overwhelm and bombardment. Stop talking. Stop. Don't talk. Okay? If you, anything, do exactly what you want them to be doing. Breathing, calming the body, maybe sitting down, maybe hugging a toy. Whatever it is, you model what you want them to be doing. Okay? All right. Let's just talk about PMR really quick, progressive muscle relaxation. How many of you have done PMR? So good. Does it work for you?
Yes.
Yeah?
In the moment.
In the moment. Right, in the moment. That's okay. That's what that, you'll take that, right? For those of you that have done PMR, progressive muscle relaxation is basically contracting and relaxing your muscles in sequence. So you might start from your toes and go up to your head, which is contract, contract for 10 seconds, release. Contract, 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 release. And you move through the body. Most of you that have done it, how have you done at the end of it? Do you feel like your body's more relaxed? Yeah? Yeah. Some of my clients can't do this, right? They don't do PMR. Like, they look at me like, it's crazy. So what I do is I do some joint, joint contraction with them, and then we relax together. And it just might be in the hands in the beginning. Does that make sense? But you want to have something in the body because the body's having the response. So address the body. All right. Okay, where are we? These are some of the things that I really like to promote if I can. Mindfulness is one of those things, which the way I see mindfulness is being in the here and now without any judgment. No judgment about it. It's just where you are, right in this moment. Acceptance of self and others. Usually my clients accept themselves fine. It's accepting others that's the problem. Okay? Assertiveness. Not aggression, but assertiveness and advocacy, which I think is different than being aggressive with what you want. Yes? Emotional regulation, we talked about that. Most importantly, distress tolerance. How can I manage my distress and know I'm uncomfortable, but know I'm not in danger? How do I do that? So, a lot of things make our clients distressed that we don't even think about. That is probably the biggest thing that we want to focus on in life, because lots of things cause distress every day. So, if we can do that, then our clients have a better chance at being more adaptive in their environments. So, distress tolerance is really critical. Pema Chodron, do any of you know Pema Chodron? She's like one of the only female Buddhist monks. She's amazing and funny. Something that she said, which I love, is you are the sky, everything else is just the weather. Yeah. So you are this vast, beautiful expanse. Rain comes and goes. Sun comes and goes. Yeah? Storm clouds come and go, but you are still solid. You are still that expanse. It's really quite lovely. All right. I was going to do an exercise with you, but we don't have to do that because it's looking bleak out there. I'm just saying. Okay. So it's looking bleak. If you want a copy of this, okay. You have an email sign up over there.
Actually, we'll put it on the website if you can send it to me.
Phenomenal. I'll send it to Yudi.
Put it on the website along with the tape so people can see.
Okay, I'll just send it to Yudi and then you guys can have it. There's some resources at the back that are really lovely. They're more OCD focused than ASD focused, but alas, this is an OCD presentation. Any questions? I'm going to open up to questions. Oh, yes.
Yeah, on the previous slide where you had emotional, emotional regulation, and I couldn't see it really well, but how to manage them. What are some strategies that you can share on how to manage them?
So any emotion in excess is a problem, right? Excitement in excess is a problem. Happiness in excess is a problem, especially when decisions are being made, right? We overpromise in happiness and excitement, right? We have problems when we're sad. We don't put ourselves out there as much for the low, for the sadness. So the first thing is just, I acknowledge and I know the emotions I'm having, and I know what to do with them. So that's what I mean. So when I'm happy, and I'm happy in just in that right zone, cool. You don't really have to do much with that, right? It's more about the negative, the distressing emotions that we do. Disappointment, I would say, is one of the biggest emotions my clients deal with, as well as anger, right? The taboo anger. But anger is huge, and it's normal. And so what do you do with those? And those are really specific. So I would just individualize it based on my client. What do I do? Inevitably with my distressing emotions, I always put in a pause button, because I want to get some time so that they can get front-brained again. So inevitably I do some sort of PMR or breathing, and it's pretty incognito. They can do it at school, at work. You can do those things without anyone knowing, but that's the first line. That's where I always go. And anyone who works with me will tell you that they get sick and tired of me saying that. Yeah, I'm a broken record with that, yeah.
You're so, your approach seems to be, bottom up, top down, pharmacological, but it just seems like you're very mindful in how you're kind of wanting to treat OCD.
Yeah.
How did that come about? And is the way that you go about it normal? Most people, it's just so different to me. There's so many things that you're doing that are very mindful.
I think some of it has to...
Is it normal? Is it normal for people that treat OCD?
I'd like to think that therapists are doing all of these things because it's good practice. I feel like it's good practice, but I have my own opinion about that. I have a lot of personal thoughts. Inevitably, my personality gets infused in my work. I can't really help it. Let's see. Go. Oh, want me to look at the...
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't know what's happening. I don't know. I appreciate you saying I'm a mindful therapist, because I've worked really hard to be mindful. You know what? It's just actually, I feel like some of it's experience. I came off of a very rigid ABA training. That was my initial training. And then when I was in my grad school program, because I was a therapist at the time, and at the time that I was a therapist, my roommate said, do you want to work with someone who's autistic? This was 20 years ago. And I said, I'm not artistic at all. And she said, no, Gwen, autistic. I have no idea what you're talking about. And at that time, I was a double major in psych and liberal studies, so I had this kind of interest in teaching already. And then I started working with him. I'll never forget him, actually. And it really changed me in many ways. But I was like ABA to the core. I mean, I believed that I could really change anything by like SR. SDR, I could totally do it, right? I was super serious about it, super serious. And it wasn't until like, I just had more experience and I was like, there's something really missing. And then in my grad school training, I trained as a clinical psychologist, so not just with autism, but with, other issues. And I got placed in a youth detention center. And it changed me dramatically because I got really flooded with emotion. And tragedy and trauma and, and I just realized, like, actually, there's nothing different in the sense that they're all people, and that we just can't kind of look at it so discreetly, like we're not vacuums. The other thing, too, is I've been very humbled by my clients. So when I think I know it, I'm off. But they inevitably tell me which way I'm, like, they give me that information. But they humble me, they really humble me, and I have mad respect for them because they work their butts off. But it's true. So no, I appreciate that. But so I've just worked really hard to be more mindful of those things, just because I think it's respectful. Yeah.
Have you ever done any EMDR with these populations? I've been read that EMDR and EBT and EFT.
Yeah.
What are those?
EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. I'm a level 2 EMDR. It's interesting that you said that. EMDR is really powerful, and EMDR is the premier treatment for trauma. And I have seen it myself because when I went through EMDR training, when you go through a training, you actually have to be a subject in EMDR. And I will not, I mean, you want to know how the body processes information? We had someone in our group who disclosed that she was actually abused in a satanic ritual. Okay? And she had the cross. She had a cross that was heated and put on her chest during this ritual. And you know, these trainings, I mean, like, they're pretty intense, right? And we're all therapists. I mean, like, we're there getting trained. So in EMDR, which by the way is basically the way to get into the information pathways, so there's the theory is that information is filed in our brain in these networks, and there's an infection or the trauma causes a rupture, and so then the brain can't heal itself. So much like we would have a scar, if you take care of it, the brain will heal it, right? I mean, the body will heal it. So the idea is remove the scar tissue, if you will, so that the information can flow again, okay? So while we're reprocessing, and the desensitization, and Francine Shapiro, who's the creator of that, noticed that the eye movements were the thing that made the biggest difference for her in regards to calming her and getting into those systems. When she was reprocessing, no joke, on her chest, cross, on her, red mark of where that cross was, because the body memorized that as a nonverbal memory. That's how traumatic it was for her. But that to me was like, oh my goodness. I was so ashamed of some of the things I did as a therapist in that moment, because I was like, I did not respect the person, because I really thought I could just like wrap it up, you know? So good. Yay for feeling like I could do it, but yeah. So EMDR is really hard on our population. I've done it a little bit, only when I know that they can cognitively handle it and that there has been pretty significant trauma involved. And sometimes that can be a social trauma, like playground trauma. Like our kids are highly traumatized by playgrounds. I'm not even kidding. The things that they tell me, right? And that they're little T traumas, we call them little T traumas, that culminate into something very big for our clients. Yeah. So it just really depends. But yeah, okay, yeah. Yes?
Can you explain what you mean by front brain?
Yeah. So you know, like just biologically, this part of our brains is the most evolved. And it's the thing that separates us from an ape, right? But we share this part with like reptiles, right? So our strongest suit, really, as humans, is really to think about things, if you will. And so if we can think about things clearly when the water is calm, usually we can make some good decisions. But when we're back-brained and we're in a fight, flight, freeze response, right, we're making decisions based on fear even though danger is not present. And that's the hard part, and that's why distress tolerance is so important, because then we're not running or avoiding or reacting or fighting. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Oh yeah.
Have you ever used neurofeedback in practice?
I don't do neurofeedback. Some of my clients have done neurofeedback with it's mixed. It's mixed. I don't know what else more to say about that. It's hit and miss. Yeah, choice.
Can you talk about some of the differences in your treatment of OCD in a neurotypical versus autistic individual?
Yeah, one, it goes a lot smoother. I can actually follow protocol. You know, the more creative I get, the more complex I know the person is, right? So when I feel like, oh, if I could just stand on my head and hang myself by my toes, if that would work, I would totally do it. Right? I know that I have a more complex system where I have to really baby step things and do things a little bit at a time so that I can gather some momentum. So when I'm dealing with straight OCD, okay, it's really quite sequential. Actually, it's like, all right, let's learn some coping skills, right? And we learn coping skills, and we pass that phase, you know? And then it's, all right, let's hierarchically list your triggers, and let's talk about that. All right, now let's start exposure. Like, it's really that linear, if you will. Nothing's linear, you know, with our guys. So I just know that the more creative I get, the more complex. So yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand, or maybe I'm under misunderstanding, that ADHD brains, the blood goes to the front of the brain. Is there any way to be more consistent with getting the blood to the front?
Yeah, I mean, that is really specific training, and Andrea just said it. That neurofeedback is going to be one of those things that are telling you where your brain's firing. Like, it's going to tell you where the activity is, if you will. So the idea behind neurofeedback is to control the activity in the brain. The great thing about neurofeedback is it gives you a visual or a tangible feedback, so you know if what you're doing or what you're not doing is what you're going for, basically. The other thing is I just know that my clients aren't the greatest reflectors. Like, I could have someone kind of freaking out, and I'm like, how do you feel right now? I'm good! Not convinced. Like, you know, where I'm like, ooh, they're not the greatest reflectors. They're not trying to lie to me. You know what I'm saying? They're really kind of disconnected from that. And so inevitably, you know, and my clients hate this. The minute I pull up my iPhone for some video, they're like, oh, you gotta see yourself. You know, like someone's having a conversation, I was like, you look like you're completely bored. And he literally was like, you know, he's like, I'm not bored. You know, and I took a picture. And I was like, all right, if this was so-and-so who you're interested in at school, Katie, whoever it was, how would you look? He sat right up and was like, this is how I look. Like, I am offended. That's what I said. But he wasn't trying to lie to me. He really was just like, because in his head he was engaged. Body, not there. Body, come along for the ride. I might say that. Bring your body and your face with you. Then, if you're happy, you know? Or they say, actually, I'm not. Now we're onto something. Let's talk about that.
So is that the ASD with the OCD?
I would say that's more ASD. Yeah.
Are you familiar with internal family systems?
Internal family systems as a theoretical orientation?
It's like inside out. It's actually in practice.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm curious. I don't know anything about it, but I'm curious about it.
Okay. It's Richard Schwartz. It's been around for about 35 years.
Oh, okay.
It's a different kind of way of accessing the system.
Okay. Ooh, I'm curious.
It's family systems, but turn inward.
Got it. Let's talk about that after.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anita.
I thought there was a condition called alexithymia, or an ability to recognize your own feelings, knowing your affective states. And if you don't know your affective states, how could you possibly modulate, regulate, and control them?
Right.
And so I wanted to do that, but also I was thinking about coming up with these kind of, having these biometric devices. Can we use these biometric devices to let people know what they're feeling?
Yeah.
Their heart rate, being conducted, things like that?
I use heart rate monitors a lot in my office. And most of the times, my clients are revving high. It's like their base heart rate is like 113. What's happening to you over there? And the only way that they're going to reduce that is to have a seat. They just run hot. They run fast, at base. That's why Anita and I said, if there's any, like, if you want to, Dr. Dana says this all the time, for those of you who know Diane, she always says, like, pick a hill to die on. She says that all the time, pick a hill to die on. It's state identification and breathing, distress tolerance, like, that's the hill, because that's the only way that you're going to really have some good control of yourself in the world. And so that becomes hard, but not impossible.
But is it useful to make those kind of, utilize those kind of devices to let them know if they don't know how they're feeling,
Absolutely.
if they're anxious or not?
my iPhone has been my best friend. Really. You can take heart rate with it, especially now. You can do heart rate with it. And video. Video feedback is huge. I don't know how many of you use your video feedback, but wow. Extremely powerful.
How can that help an individual at the moment where they're having a meltdown moment? Like reaching that level?
By the way, when you're in a meltdown moment, you're not teaching. That's you're
you don't want to get to that moment.
Right.
Going to that level.
Right.
Amp it down.
Right. So Manina, so that's maybe where you might have heart rate monitor might be nice, right? You know, some of my clients have likened it to the Hulk.
Right.
You know, Bruce Banner wore a heart rate monitor, you know, to like kind of gauge so he didn't get above that. You know, he didn't become the Hulk, right? But absolutely, you have to know, like, am I teaching? Am I intervening right now, or am I calming? Like, when am I doing that? That can be pretty quick, right? That can change pretty quickly. But yeah, you're not trying to teach a coping skill in the moment of distress.
Right.
Yeah, that's not the time, usually. Even though you can model some of that to try to help bring it down. But heart rate monitors have been great, too. That's if they don't, you know, sometimes they get really upset with that and they just want to throw their phone or take off. You know, because the only problem with the heart rate monitor is you have to put it on. They don't like that. They don't like the chest, you know. The watch has been really nice because it's not so intrusive as the chest piece, but yeah, okay. Good. Oh, yeah.
Well, the Fitbits work really well too.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy thing to check.
And they're really hardy, those Fitbits.
And it's all triggered on your phone, so then
yeah,
the mom or dad can have the information.
The information. Yeah, that's great. No, that's really great. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Are we good? Are you guys ready to go home? Are you ready to go home and have dinner and then get to sleep? Take a shower and go to bed. All right. So I will give the presentation to Yudi. Thank you so much for your attention.
Let me just announce. Away from you, Gwen, but for anybody who doesn't know, our website is www.foothillautism.org. So Gwen's, by sometime next week, we'll have Gwen's PowerPoint posted up there. Okay, and now we can cheer for Gwen.
Thank you.